word at noon. The headlines. Nigeria suspended accountant general rearranged over fraud. Kenya children skip classes to beg for food as wages. Mexico legalizes same-sex marriage. South Korea to review extradition of New Zealand suspect. In Nigeria, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has rearranged suspended Accountant General of the Federation Ahmed Idris and 3 others before a Federal Capital Territory High Court in Maitama over an alleged 109.5 billion naira fraud. Other defendants are Olusegun Akindele, Mohammed Usman, and Gizawa Commodity Market and Exchange Limited. They were first arraigned in July this year before a vacation judge, Justice Adeyemi Ajayi, on a 13-count charge bordering on misappropriation of 109.5 billion naira. However, upon the resumption of the court, the case was transferred to Justice Yusuf Halilu. They all pledged not guilty to the charge preferred against them, after which the counsel for Idris, Chris Uche, prayed the court to allow the defendants to continue to enjoy the earlier bail granted them by the court on July 28. Still in Nigeria, the Non-Academic Staff Union of Education, now and Associated Institutions, NASU, wants President Muhammadu Buhari's administration to pay salary arrears for the 4 months their industrial action lasted. NASU General Secretary Peters Adeyemi said this while addressing a news conference at the union's ongoing National Executive Council NEC meeting in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Mr. Adeyemi said the NEC expected the federal government to make arrangements to pay the salary arrears. According to NASU, since all parties within the university system have suspended their industrial actions, it behoves the government to start reviewing the hard stance it took while the tertiary institutions were shut down. Mr. Adeyemi also said that under no circumstance would the government sweep this issue under the carpet, especially when the government obliged the National Association of Resident Doctors, NAD, similar gesture after they suspended their 2-month strike. A helicopter that crashed in Cameroon Highlands yesterday had flown into heavy rain and fog, with Malaysian rescuers able to quickly locate the crash site as the pilot had alerted his friend about the incident. Report says the 43-year-old pilot, Captain Vedros Rohazam, was carrying 5 medical staff from a village in Guamuzang district in Kelantan back to Apple when the crash occurred at around noon in the hills of Bichang Town on Cameroon Highlands located in Fahang State. Perak Police Chief Hassan Basri said rescuers arrived at the crash site at around evening and rescued all 6 victims alive. The last victim was moved out of the crash site last night and taken to the hospital. Mr. Mojusri said the pilot had contacted his friend in Apple about the crash of the Airbus AS355 F2 helicopter, who later reported to the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia. In Kenya, Deputy Country Commissioner Jintongang Murungi has said drought-induced hunger in Murang'a South sub-country is pushing children in poor families to skip classes to beg for food in villages and market centers. Mr. Murungi told newsmen that some children have become breadwinners because they stand a better chance of receiving pity-driven generosity. He said without rain for the past 1 year, our farmers have no harvest for consumption and selling. This also translates to lack of fodder for livestock. Report says parents are defaulting in school fees, which resulted in a hunger crisis in schools as principals cannot replenish foodstuffs. Mr. Murungi appealed to well-wishers to help needy families. This is the word at noon coming to you from Osun State Broadcasting Corporation, Labuyokibale Oshibu, Voice of the West. Now our main news. Life is a mixture of ups and downs, but how you treat the 2 imposters determines who you are. No condition is permanent. Mexico Local Congress says same-sex marriage has become legal throughout the country after the state of Tamaulipas became the last in the monthly Catholic country to approve it. The northern border state's decision ends a 12-year journey toward national marriage equality, beginning when the capital Mexico City became the first to celebrate the same-sex union in 2010. The move was followed by a Supreme Court declaration 5 years later, placing a ban on same-sex marriage was unconstitutional that spurred changes at the state level. Marriage equality was approved in 7 other states this year. 3 of them in the last 2 weeks. South Korea has initiated a court review on whether to extradite a 42-year-old woman facing murder charges from New Zealand, where the bodies of 2 dead children were found in abandoned suitcases in August. The country's Justice Ministry says it has instructed prosecutors to apply for the review at the Seoul High Court after determining there was considerable reason to believe that the suspect committed the crimes. If the court rules in favor of her extradition, South Korean Justice Minister Han Dong-eun would make the final call on whether she is sent to New Zealand. An official from the Ministry's International Crimes Division, Lee Ji-yong, said prosecutors would likely apply for the review this week and that the court would have 2 months to decide on the case. 2 Hong Kong protesters were found guilty on sedition charge after they clapped and criticized the judge during a previous trial over a banned Tiananmen Square vigil in the city. Gary Pang Mo-yun, a pastor, and Chiu Mi-ying, a housewife, were arrested in April for disturbances they made in a court hearing in January when a leader of the group that organized the Hong Kong vigil was sentenced for inciting others to join the prohibited event last year. Hong Kong is undergoing a political crackdown following widespread protests in 2019 and the imposition of a sweeping national security law in 2020, with many prominent activists in the pro-democracy camp having been arrested or jailed. Besides the national security law, a growing number of dissidents have also been charged for colonial-era sedition offenses. Mr. Pang and Ms. Chiu, instead of being charged with contempt of court, were charged with uttering seditious words. Here again are the highlights of the world at noon. In Nigeria, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has rearranged suspended Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, and 3 others before a Federal Capital Territory High Court in Maitama over an alleged 109.5 billion naira fraud. In Kenya, Deputy Country Commissioner Gitonga Murungi has said drought-induced hunger in Murunga South sub-country is pushing children in poor families to skip classes to beg for food in villages and market centers. Mexico local Congress says same-sex marriage has become legal throughout the country after the state of Tamaulipas became the last in the mostly Catholic country to approve it. South Korea has initiated a court review on whether to extradite a 42-year-old woman facing murder charges from New Zealand, where the bodies of 2 dead children were found in abandoned suitcases in August. That was the word at noon, edited by Temitope Olaiwola and delivered by Oluwatoyin Ojeyemi. In this news talk, Ajoaja Mao examines the danger inherent in boarding vehicles at roadside, which is common to many Nigerians who always like to avoid the stress of delay at public